Yes, I have a bunch of non-binary friends and everything, and they're valid and that's real. Where that happens when you're being born, when you're in the womb and the atoms are forming the different brains. But you also have gender. The general public and some transgender people are like me, where I just got the woman's brain. That's it. I'm a girl. That's it. And then some get a mixture and they'll never know what that's like. And so they're thinking, see, I even made the same mistake years ago. You know what the mistake everybody makes? They live in their own head and you get in your own head and comfortable, then you're thinking everybody's like that. I remember being that way. I remember 10 years ago, like I was saying, I ruined my whole relationship of 8 years with who I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life, my ex, because I was so miserable not being able to transition. I was living as a woman and dressing, but I didn't have the hormones or anything yet, and I was just miserable. It was eating me inside and killing me. What do you call it? Like I was just dying inside slowly, where I started neglecting her romantically or just touch. Like I just got miserable, and I was not that I wasn't thinking every day, like, hey, I'm so happy to have her, but you take it for granted. You get comfortable and you're just thinking, oh, no matter what I'm going through, we're going to be together. You know what I mean? And blah, blah, blah. But the point is that I really hurt her and I hurt all my other female friends because I was saying, because me, I was miserable and I wasn't able to transition. So I went on this like pissy vendetta because when you're miserable about one thing and you can't fill that void, because I couldn't transition. I was afraid to because we were trying to have a kid, or I thought she wouldn't want me to go all the way, or she'd leave me. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's what I was afraid of or thought. So I thought like, okay, I'm stuck. So I tried to fill that void with other things. So I wanted to be this hero, and I wanted to like, I don't know. And I went on this like whole thing to prove that, oh, gender's not real. I guess just because I was pissy that I couldn't be the girl that I really was. You know what I mean? And it was ridiculous. And I was just saying, oh, da 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 da. And I hurt a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends that were girl, like female, like my cis friend, like because it's like no, not. And I ended up ironically realizing that I am a full girl anyway, or knowing. I knew the whole time. I don't know why got so pissy, because I wanted to do something to go down in history. Like I was going on all these other things to try to just be important in some way because I couldn't just be who I was. So I was miserable. Isn't that crazy? And you ruin your whole life. I still haven't forgiven myself for that. And I'm a very sincere person. I didn't do it intentionally or even thought about it. It happened to totally subconsciously without even thinking. Trying to just thinking you're doing good and just being like sad all the time. Because um I don't know. But that's not me. I before that, I was a class clown, like I said. I was a very happy person all the time. And then I finally just like cracked. And I feel so bad that it had to happen for me to get to my happiness now. Isn't it? And that's what people don't realize about trans people. They lose their whole lives all the time in their marriages and their families, and like they think like, oh, you did this to me. You're embarrassing me. It's like, no. How do you think we feel? How scary we are to come out and to face our parents and our in the world and everything, and all the like criticism. It's scarier to be the trans person and to show it when you're scared to death of what the world and everybody's going to think, and everyone's going to leave you, because statistically 90 whatever, look it up, more than not, everybody's friends and family and everything leave the trans person, and they think like, oh, you did this to me. It's like, no, we just were and hid it for over and over until you just can't hide it anymore, and you just crack and you come out and you do it, and it ruins everyone's life. It sucks. So anyway, so I wanted to use this example of where gender's real, and I realized it more and more as I analyzed my whole life. So I'll give you an example, and you're thinking like, well, why is this relatable to the surgeries? Okay, so I'll give you an example between men and women. Generally, like now you got to remember, even now I want to point this out. Even though not every woman is the same and not every man is the same and everyone has their own distinct personalities that make them unique, there are still fundamental bases of gender built in that you can't change. Like you could be a woman and different than this woman, but you're going to have those fundamental couple base wiring that you can't change. I'll give you an example. My dad, he's the most sensitive man in the world. He's not macho. He's not like a guy like that. He's gentle. You could talk to him about feelings. You could talk to him about science. You could talk to him about everything. And he's a really sensitive dude. But you have to open the door to that, okay? He is still a man. And men, for whatever reason, in the evolution, and they proved this studying chimps, separating them between men and women, or the male chimps and the female chimp, blah, 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 like I said in the last video, of how they act. And it's the same way with us humans, where it's all the same thing and proven just by studying, and also just studying inside the brain and looking at how the brains are different. This stuff's all proven, and you can just do this. It's not like it's like, oh, like I love how people who hate. Now it's funny because all the trans people are like, oh, gender's real, and you're just really a man. It's like, nope, you don't understand how you could be born in the womb and all that, and how all that stuff could happen. So I'll get into that in a minute, but let me just stick to one thing at a time, because I'm going all over the place here, and I want to... So, okay. So my dad, right? So I'm obviously having to get taken care of. Now my dad is doing the provider thing. You know what I mean? He's providing me with all the diapers, the lube. Anytime I say, Dad, I need this, he's right on it. He's providing all the physical things I need. Just like going back to the caveman days where they provide the food, they provide. But he's not being emotional. You know what I mean? His emotions are just shut down. Like I could be sitting there saying I'm in pain, I'm crying, and my brother and him could be over, right? And we could be playing video games together, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, the other day I was crying in pain, and we were all playing Mario Kart together, and they just shut down. They didn't know what to do. They didn't say, oh my God, are you okay? Do you need this? Or we're here for you. They didn't do anything to... Because what a woman wants, we'll give the perfect... See, what men do is, like my dad and everything, they'll provide everything you need, and that's their way of showing I care. Like, here's everything you need. Food. Here's the ointment. He provided me everything I need. But he's not showing the emotional part. And not that he didn't care. And you know what's funny? I brought that up to him the next day. I said, Dad, I feel like when you guys are all together and the guys... You guys just shut down and just watch me, or you just don't know what to do and you just freeze up. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And I guess it's like this evolution thing. He said that on his own. Like, it's like, why do we do that? Like, me and your brother just shut down and we don't know what to do because, you know what? Because men have to fix everything. Men don't go by emotional talking about things to relate. Like women, like me, I want to just vent and be like, wow. And I feel good if someone just understands me and be like, wow, and understands what I'm going through, and I talked about it and feel better. I don't need them to fix it and solve it. But you know how men think? Men's brains, right at the base, they have to fix it. And if they can't fix it, they don't know what to do, and it's like, oh, I don't know what to tell you. I can't. They need to solve it. And if they can't solve your problem, then it's like it's a breakdown. But a woman... Like my mom, I'll give you an example. When my mom's there, she'll be right on it to just comfort me and talk to me and everything. But my dad and brother, even though they love me and they care, they can't. They freeze. It's so funny. I noticed that with my friend Joe. I noticed that with every guy throughout my whole life. I used to argue and have so many problems with my male friends because they couldn't, because of that whole thing where I wanted to just talk about things and they didn't want to. You know what I mean? There's the whole thing. There's the stereotype, but it's true. Stereotypes are real because they are true. You know what I mean? Like for a reason. Like for them, like there's a book that is true. Like I was gonna say a minute ago. It's called Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, and it's a famous book, and it breaks down every example. And you know what's funny? Every example in that book was me down to a T. With any time I was with a male, dated a male, friends with a male, argued with my dad for years, is when we were living together, on and off. Because I've been on and off living with my dad as I've been losing jobs over lawsuits over discriminations or a breakup and having to come back home. And he's always been there for me. And you know what's funny? Like I said, I brought that up to him and he's like, you're right. And then we talked about it and he understood everything. And so what's funny is that it's not that a guy you can't talk about or guys don't have emotions. It's just that at first they have that I have to solve it barrier. So anyway, the book uses the old example. Wife comes home from work to husband, and wife is like, oh, my boss made me so mad. You know what I mean? He likes this other female worker than me and gives her more attention and a promotion because she has bigger boobs or something. Like something like that. And she just wants to vent about it, that it's so frustrating, and just wants the love and the understanding, being like, hey, I'm here for you and I understand why you're frustrated. women don't want you to solve it or just magically fix it. We want you to understand why we're upset, and so we feel like, wow, you understand. I don't feel like an alien. I don't feel alone in the world. That's the difference. So a man will be like, well, why don't you just, if you hate it, why don't you leave the job then? So they're looking for a logical black and white, no emotion involved way to solve it. But women don't want to solve it in that, you know what I mean? We want to talk about it and relate. We want to connect. We want to connect with our partner, whether it's a woman or a man. And then there's like the opposite where the man comes home and the woman automatically sees that he's upset and she's like, well, come on, talk about it. You'll feel better. And women want to just get it over with. That's how I was. I always had fights with relationships, whether I was with a girl or a guy, where anytime I had say we had a little fight and they said something that hurt my feelings, before we'd go out or do anything, I'd be like, no, I want to fix this or I'm not going to be okay. And they'd be like, no, we'll talk about it after we get home. We got to get to so-and-so's house to hang out. My relationships were ruined because I was like, well, no, I'm not going to feel okay until we talk about it. I need to talk about it. And they were like, no, we'll put it on the back burner. And that's what with my last ex would happen. And it's like, I say to myself, like, man, was I wrong or stupid? I couldn't control myself. It was like it's the wiring that you can't fight. It's a fundamental base in my brain that I have to work on, but it's going to be instinctively there, if that makes sense. Sure, I'm not saying you can't work on it and be like, all right, I got to learn to maybe this is a battle. You can't take on every battle. Maybe this is something small and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we could talk about it later. But I used to, and the problem I used to do is everything had to be talked about immediately. And it was too much, and it wore them, you know what I mean? Wore them out. And I don't think that's justification for leaving me or anything or breaking up, but I'm saying, maybe you want to be like, all right, this is small, we'll talk about it later. So you want that, both genders need that balance. If you have a male or female brain, and you're the general. I mean, sure, there's exceptions, but if you fall in the general, like me. So, okay. So there's that example, and then so going back to the guy thing, so the woman's like, come on, let's talk about it, you'll feel better, we'll get it over with. He don't want to talk about it then. He wants to maybe relax, vegetate, get his mind off it, play a video game, watch something. And it's like, that's just one example that's been so true with every male I've seen in my life, where it's like, wow, the stereotypes, they are true. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to use that example too, for any transphobe that tries to say like, oh, you're not really a woman. It's like, no, you don't know how it works. Okay? Cis women and cis people and trans people are the exact same thing. Okay? There are cis women that are born with a vagina that are, considered a woman by society just because of that vagina that has nothing to do with your gender or anything up here, but they may have more testosterone. When they're born, it says when you're in the womb and you're being formed, you get shot with that first hormone that's going to make your gender, whether it's estrogen or testosterone, and that's what forms what you're going to look like, your body, everything, right? But sometimes people get shot with the other hormone, the other gender hormone, a little more. Like I did a lot of studying, and do you know why there's homosexual people, or men and women? And remember, these are not like accidents or saying anything bad. I'm just explaining the science behind why there's the variety, like trans, gay. None of this is all normal. Okay, it's not like, oh yeah, it was an accident. We're all fuck ups. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this is why we have the variety. So what happens is you're in the womb, right, and you're being formed. So your body's forming, like, let's say your body's forming a woman body, right? Like the vagina and all that. So you could be a cis woman, but then you could get shot with testosterone too. And then that'll make the woman more of like a tomboy, or a little bit more like that, have a little bit more estrogen, or a little bit more testosterone than the average woman. So now you're not the general woman anymore. So that's why you might meet a woman who's more of a tomboy, or she like hates kids, isn't nurtured, it doesn't have any more of the female. That just means that she's a woman because, she has a vagina and all that, but she has more testosterone. Because we all have, women have like this much estrogen and a little bit of testosterone. Men have all this testosterone and a little bit of estrogen. That's what makes us different. But sometimes you get the people that have a little more than they should, like homosexual men, because really, and it's proven, estrogen is what makes you attracted to men and feminine. That's why there are trans people. I know I have trans friends that are trans women that didn't weren't attracted to men at all, but then they became attracted to men as they were a couple years into hormones or into the estrogen. Take because that and that's where the feelings and the emotions come from. So all those things about women, it is true. It's just that it's exaggerated and you know. But that's true. And men have less estrogen, like the little tiny bit, and that's why they're more with So there's your examples, and that's how it works. So it's all really on balances of the gender hormones, estrogen and testosterone, the mix, and then there's the getting the mixed different brain, creating trans people, and all that pain in the ass work. So there you go. That's everything you need to know, and that's the update on week 3.